What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Daily with me, Mike Zakarian. As the offseason continues to heat up, we still are trying to figure out what types of moves the Celtics are going to make this offseason. But before we dive into today's drama, do me a favor, smash the subscribe if this is your first time here, or if you've been here before and you haven't subscribed yet, and hit the little notification bell so you know the next time we're dropping that sweet, sweet Celtics content. And speaking of content, there's been a ton of Kevin Durant content over the last couple of days. Rumors have been picking up that like KD's on his way out of Phoenix. There's been no surprise there. But what we're going to do today, since it's been a little bit quiet on the Celtics front, is talk a little bit about trade value, how this KD situation could impact some of the conversations around Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, Sam Hauser, and let's lean in and whisper lightly, Jaylen Brown, and how the trade value can shift depending on what is required, right? So we've now known since February, right? Because if you remember, the Suns tried trading KD without even talking to KD about it. Then they had a plan in place that it looked like they were going to send him to Golden State. And then Durant was like, I don't want to go to Golden State. And then from that very moment, it was clear Durant was not going to be on that dumpster fire franchise, the Phoenix Suns, for the start of the next season. And in the last couple of weeks, it's really ramped up that he was going to get moved probably before the draft. And the conversation was like, where's he going to go? Is it going to be New York? There's some dark horse teams. We're going to talk about the landing spots that Kevin Durant has said that he's basically looking for now. And what's so fascinating about this whole thing is because you look at KD and like, yes, of course, he's a little bit older now. He's at a different part of his career, but he's still like an all-NBA player. He's one of the best scoring forwards in the history of the game, can still put up 28 plus a game. His defense probably slipped a little bit, but if you add him to a contending team, he immediately makes a massive difference, especially with some of the teams that we're going to talk about right now. However, one of the issues you're running into is when a player basically is like, hey, you're going to have to give up a ton to get, or not even a ton to get me, but you're going to have to give up enough to get me. And the plan is to extend him, right? So you're not doing a 1-year rental. This is most likely supposed to be for this year and then the next 2 seasons. So when he comes out there and it's basically like, I'm only going to go to these handful of teams, or I'm only interested in these handful of teams, it limits what the value is, right? It also limits the players or the teams that can put together packages. And so it's almost like the opposite of an arms race, right? Because there's no incentive for these teams who have been listed by KD to provide their best package, their best offer, right? Because you like, who are you going up against? You're not concerned. Like the Warriors have not been a team that have been listed. The Clippers are not a team that have been listed. There's no need to compete against teams that might be able to put together better offers. So it's really kind of almost tanked the value of Kevin Durant, and it puts the Phoenix Suns in a weird situation, right? Because they don't have to trade him. They don't have to. He's got 1 more year on the contract, but you already have one player you can't trade on your team that doesn't want to be there, that costs you $50+ million and now comes off the bench, and that's Bradley Beal. Do you really want a second one of those situations? Insert the Glee meme, I'm about to make a situation so toxic, or whatever the line is right there, because it really does set Phoenix up for failure. So Phoenix is now most likely going to be pressured to take in an offer that's not the most exciting. And so it's really interesting to see this play out. So let's talk about the first team. And I wanted to bring all of that up because when you think about Drew Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis, where everyone now knows, so like they can say whatever they want, like, oh, we want a first-round pick back for Drew, or we want a win-now player back for Kristaps Porzingis. All of that sounds nice, right? Until the fact that we know, because of all of the reporting, all of the conversations around this team, that the Celtics have to move these guys to get under the, I mean, they don't have to, but they're not going to pay $263 million, not in roster, but in tax, right? You're not going to pay $500 million in roster and tax combined to then get bounced in the first or second round without Jason Tatum on your team. So everyone knows around the league, I mean, if we're talking about it, other organizations know about it, that the Celtics need to move off of these guys. So, like, yeah, you can say this is what I want back, but the market is going to market, right? So let's look at the Timberwolves first, where this is like one of the sneaky, not even sneaky now, it's being reported, but spots. Like Minnesota clearly was fishing around in February about trying to make the Durant man. Is that what we could do? Durant man? Let's put it on a t-shirt. Let's trademark and start to make some cash on this. But this type of deal is kind of interesting because Minnesota, again, KD's making 50 plus million and they're second apron teams. So because of that, you have to it's going to be the money's going to equal right. So a third team probably gets involved, but most likely you got Julius Randle or Rudy Gobert will have to go out in this deal. Minnesota's basically said, everybody would be on the table but Jaden McDaniels. So that means you're getting back, Randall, who, listen, Randall still puts up good numbers, but, Randall you're losing this trade, right? The only thing you're doing is Randall's got 1 year left on his deal, right? He's got that player option. So you're either extending him or just off him, or you're getting off the Rudy money, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But I don't know if that makes Minnesota marketably better, right? If you look at what the Timberwolves did last season for that Karl Anthony Towns trade, they basically were we're going to take the money of Karl Anthony Towns, one player, and then get two players back. Now what they would be doing is taking the money of Kevin Durant to get one player to move two players out. It's just there's no direction whatsoever. If Minnesota's to do this move, they have to think they can get there right away to the finals, right? And maybe they could. But again, you think about what Phoenix would be getting back, and that's like a dog-do return. No disrespect. I mean, you can't say dog-do return and then say no disrespect. Now, let's look at the state of Texas, okay? Because these are the other teams that have been rumored. Now, people are going to throw out the Dallas Mavericks out there. The Mavericks package is a little bit interesting because you probably get somebody like Clay in there, and then you're going to have to throw in a PJ and then maybe a Gafford, something like that. It's going to be those players, but the real assets that Phoenix would be getting back are some picks, because if you forgot about Phoenix, and listen, if you think the Celtics are in a weird spot this season, this is a glass half full moment. At least we're not the Phoenix Suns, because they let go of all of their picks for Kevin Durant. So they have no upcoming picks really at all. Or if they do, they're swaps, and then they're the worst of it. So by making this move with Dallas, maybe you get that Minnesota pick that they got. Or is it a Minnesota pick? No, I'm messing that up. I think they've got a San Antonio Spurs pick coming up. There's another, maybe it's in Atlanta. They have one other pick too that I'm blanking on. So maybe you get some of those first round picks, or it's like a 2030 first from Dallas that is their own pick, because you think hey, AD is going to break down by then. I don't know. Let's look at the San Antonio Spurs, because if you listen to the Bill Simmons report or podcast, or any other media outlet, there's been some real smoke there about getting KD to San Antonio to pair him up with Wembanyama. But the return on this, similarly, you'll probably get a pick or two back, but then it's Devin Vassell, who I'm a Vassell truther. I do love Devin Vassell. And then it's Keldon Johnson and Victor Wembanyama. That's how you're going to get to Victor Wembanyama, Jesus. And Keldon Johnson and Harrison Barnes. So recap, it's Vassell, Barnes, and Keldon Johnson. That's how you're going to get to that money. So, your Phoenix, you're okay, we're getting KD back. Maybe we get that future pick. And then Vassell, I guess, is nice. It's just a terrible, terrible spot to be in. But I do think the most intriguing of all of them is the Houston Rockets. And I think if Phoenix is going to be honest with themselves, that is the spot they want to get to. Because you want to know why? Houston controls Phoenix's first-round picks in the future. So a similar situation with Milwaukee and Giannis, right? If you trade Giannis, Milwaukee doesn't have their first-round picks. A lot of those are with the New Orleans Pelicans. So they don't, you can't even tank. And that's the same situation with Phoenix. You can't even tank to get a good first-round pick because you don't own your first-round picks. So by trading with Houston, all of a sudden, you're okay, if we can get control of some of our own draft picks, maybe that makes more sense. But it goes back to the conversation we had at the top of this video. Why would Houston do that? Houston's looking around. They're hey, we have the most cash. We have the biggest treasure chest, right? We have Jalen Green, Alpin Sengun. They're not going to move Amin Thompson. They got Reed Shepard, the number 2 overall pick last season that didn't even really play basketball this year. You've got Jabari Smith Jr. You've got Tyree Eason. And now you've got all of your own picks. You've got all of Phoenix's picks, right? So, you're looking around at the deal that San Antonio can offer, where it's okay, Vassell, Keldon. You look at what Minnesota can offer, what Dallas can offer. They're you don't need to include those picks because already you have the best package. Pause. So I just think the KD value is just so insane. And I know, again, this isn't Celtics specific, but if you just watch how this plays out, you see a good asset in Kevin Durant, who's overpriced at this point in his career. And it's there's only so many teams that have the flexibility to bring him in to begin with, and only a fraction of those teams, it makes sense to go get him. So, like, you're not really it's like, again, the opposite of an arms race, which sounds like a Fall Out Boy song. But I do think KD gets moved in the next couple of days, and I think a lot of the conversation around it will be like, wow, that's kind of underwhelming for Kevin Durant. But that's just kind of the lay of the land. So I think it's really good for us Celtics fans to kind of reshape our expectations for some of these off-season deals, especially if it's for Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, because I do think it might be a little bit underwhelming. And then listen, we lower the bar. That way it's easier to jump over it, and then we can be happy when the trades actually finally happen. So that is my my monologue on the KD situation. I wanted to get this out now because I really do think it's going to break soon so we can see how smart or how dumb I look. What do you guys think about some of those KD packages? Let me know in the comments. Again, I know the Celtics aren't going to go get Kevin Durant, but I just think it's an interesting conversation. It's just it's the brief window into the future of what a lot of these NBA off seasons are going to look like. The last thing I wanted to talk about before we get out of here, I don't know how many of you guys saw this on the internet yesterday. Just an insane fight in the Big Three. For those that aren't familiar with the Big Three, it's where washed NBA players go to play 3-on-3 while Ice Cube sits courtside. And we've had a couple of different moments where I think DeMarcus Cousins got booted for grabbing his wiener. But then more importantly, yesterday, Lance Stevenson, Jordan Crawford got into it. And then a few minutes later, Dwight Howard tried to suplex Lance Stevenson. So listen, man, if you're like, hey, I like the WWE, but I'd like it more if a basketball was involved, I highly recommend checking out the Big Three because that is where all the chaos is right now. So yeah, good palate cleanser if you want to call it that. But that's going to do it today. Again, appreciate everybody tuning in. I really do. There's been the channel's been bumping lately, so I appreciate the support as those of you who have been subscribing and just engaging with the content because we all need to stay sane this NBA offseason as the Celtics, slowly move some pieces off. So again, if you made it this far without subscribing, do me a favor, hit the subscribe, and we will see you next time.